Yeah, good evening, everyone. Okay, it's 6 o'clock, so we're going to start this meeting now. So I would like to welcome you all in this meeting. This meeting this evening will be live streamed to the public. Any exempt items of the agenda, the live stream will cease prior to the meeting moving into private. There might be a short delay. A recording of the meeting will be available on the Council's website within 24 hours of the meeting. Board members and officers, please remember to switch microphones on when speaking and speak directly into the microphone and switch microphone off when finished. Reporting officers joining using Teams, use the hands up icon on your screen for questions and comments. Please turn your camera and microphone on when speaking and off when finished. And also please switch mobile phone off or place on silent mode. Any apologies?
Yes, Chair. An apology has been received from Councillor Pedersen, Chair.
Thank you. So, minutes of the last meeting. We'll go two sets of the minutes. One is from 21st of November 2022. So, members, have you read the whole meeting minutes? Agreed? Thank you. So, the other minutes of the meeting were from the additional meeting on 7th of December 2022. You happy with that? Thank you. The work program report is being moved to the next meeting as Councillor Peterson would like to be involved in these discussions. So we'd only look at items to the next meeting or accept new items. So when we get there on agenda item 13, we can take some suggestions, but this will be discussed in the next meeting. SEMLab, Judith Parker, Director of Programs and Governance, and Hilary Chipping will join online to deliver their presentation in 3 key headings. We want to discuss it now. Item 12. 10. Yeah. The disclosures of interest. Any interest members want to share? Disclose. Thank you. Any other business? References from committees and other bodies.
Apologies, Chair. Can I just declare this in advance? I'm about to be a pain. In relation to agenda item 10, the Luton delayed opening, I am a director of Luton Rising, so I've taken advice from the monitoring officer as well, and given the nature of the item, I can't participate in that, so I'll need to leave. That's okay?
Thank you, Councillor. I would also like to mention that I'm a travel agent and it's not, it's a personal interest, but not pecuniary. So we are moving on to agenda item 7, annual SEMLab updates.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Shall we introduce ourselves? My name's Hilary Chipping and I'm Chief Executive of the South East Midlands Local Enterprise Partnership, and my colleague Judith.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Judith Barker and I'm the Director of Programmes and Governance at SEMLab. And I'm going to be sharing my screen, if that's okay with you, Chair, to enable the presentation. I know you've had the slides in your pack, but I'll share the screen, and we have included a very brief, just less than 2 minutes, video which summarises our work last year and was part of our AGM. I don't know if the sound effects are going to work, but it is absolutely primarily about the video content. So hopefully it will give you a real flavour of what we've been up to since we last spoke to you.
Yeah, thank you. Carry on.
Thank you. Thanks very much, Chair, and thank you, Judith. So first of all, thank you for inviting us again for what has become an annual visit to this Overview and Scrutiny Committee. We welcome very much the opportunity to talk to you and take questions about what we've been doing as a local enterprise partnership throughout the last year. So if we move on, so I'll say a little bit about the background. I know that some members of the committee will be quite familiar with SEMLEP, but it might be new to others. So we're a local enterprise partnership, public-private partnership. We're actually a company limited by guarantee. We cover, as you can see from the map there, the area of 6 now all unitary local authorities, so as well as Luton, Central Bedfordshire, Bedford, Milton Keynes and West Northamptonshire and North Northamptonshire. So we're one of 37 now, I think. LEP's covering the whole of England. We're one of the larger ones. We've got a population of around 1.8 million and over 78,000 businesses, most of which are small businesses, SMEs, and a big economy, gross value added, certainly before COVID, of around 50 billion. As I say, we cover 6 local authority areas. We've also have the benefit of 4 very different, diverse universities. Obviously, the University of Bedfordshire, that you will know well, with its campus in Luton, but also Cranfield University with its own airport, and the University of Northampton and the Open University. And we meet regularly with our universities. So if we move on, thank you. So we have a board that oversees the local enterprise partnership, and that has all 6 of our local authorities represented on it. So Councillor Hazel Simmons is on the board with 5 other leaders or their representatives. And we also have a representative of the higher education institutions, which I've just described. And at the moment, it is Rebecca Bunting, the Vice-Chancellor of the University of Bedfordshire, that represents them. And we have a representative of all our further education colleges, and at the moment that is Pat Brennan-Barrett, who is Principal of Northampton College. We have a number of private sector board members, and indeed we are pleased to be welcoming 3 more private sector board members at our next meeting in February, and we also have a representative of the voluntary and community sector. Clearly, stakeholder engagement is really important to us, as is equality and diversity. And my colleague Judith will be very happy to answer any questions about equality and diversity as she leads on that particular element of our programmes. So, as I said, we're very happy to be here and welcome this scrutiny of what we do, and the offer is always open to any local authority or other organisation across our area that would like to scrutinise us. So, moving on, thank you, and let's see if the video works. Thanks very much. I hope that you were able to see that, and we produced that for our annual general meeting, which took place last year at the end of the year in the Vulcan Works in Northampton, and you'll have seen there a number of projects that we delivered in Luton and surrounding areas using our local growth fund funding and our Getting Building fund. So. Moving on, and as the word said at the end of the video, we had a great year last year. Continued to deliver a great deal, but there is some uncertainty over government's expectations and funding for local enterprise partnerships moving forwards. And as this slide explains, so back in February last year, government published the Levelling Up and Regeneration White Paper and set out their aspirations for all parts of the country to be covered by some sort of devolution arrangements, and that will have an impact on local enterprise partnerships, as government expects local enterprise partnerships to be fully integrated into whatever local democratic institutions emerge by 2030. So at the moment, we are following what's known as Pathway 2, which was outlined by government in a letter to all LEPs at the end of March last year. And basically that suggests that if LEPs are operating in an area where there is currently not a combined authority with a mayor and no immediate plans for devolution, although clearly in this area the 6 local authority leaders may want to enter into negotiations at some stage with government around devolution. But at the moment our role is very much focused on embedding a strong, independent and diverse local business voice, carrying out our strategic economic planning in partnership with our local leaders, and particularly looking at the economic priorities and the sector strengths across our area, and what actions that we can take in order to support those priority sectors. We also have a number of functions that we deliver on behalf of government departments, such as our Growth Hub, which I'll say a bit more about later in the presentation, which delivers direct support to businesses. We work with the Department of International Trade on inward investment activity, and we're setting up a careers hub which covers the whole of the South East Midlands area. Now, our budget in 2022-23 was unfortunately reduced by government by around 40%, and at the moment we are still waiting to hear from government about our budget for 2023-24, and so it is likely that we will need to be looking at some sort of restructuring of our organisation as we go forwards. Next slide, please. So we've been doing a lot of work sort of reviewing our priorities. One of the changes that took place was the opportunity for us to invest directly using capital funding through the local growth fund and Getting Building fund. That programme came to an end at the end of March last year, although, as I said, a number of projects continued to be completed and delivered over the course of last year. So our focus moving forwards is very much on the 3 areas set out here in the diagram. So absolutely about supporting our businesses, and we do that directly through our Growth Hub, but also through the work that we do, particularly around skills, and then providing evidence and analysis to support that strategic growth across the area. So we're a relatively small team. At the moment we've got about 37 people in the team, and our focus is very much on working in partnership with others, with our local authority partners and other organisations. Inclusivity, diversity and sustainability runs through everything that we do, and our role as set out by government is very much to be informed by business, so to bring that voice of business into local democratic decision making. Next slide, please. So we I've already mentioned that we do a lot of work around gathering evidence, and in order to support our local authority colleagues, we carry out a business survey every 2 years. So the last business survey was in 2021. We're hoping to be able to do another one this year, funding permitting, and we always ensure that the results are available for each of our local authorities. So I think focusing on perhaps the third bullet point here, and the focus on the net zero agenda, because I know that later on in your agenda you have an item around net zero, and it's something that's very close to the work in Luton at the moment. So the business survey showed that whilst 45% of businesses in Luton have the intention of being more environmentally friendly, just 12% have set a specific target, and only 5% have a deadline to this commitment. Now, things may have changed a little over the course of the last year, but that's fairly similar across the patch. So there's a lot of work for all of us to do to help businesses to achieve those net zero targets. You move on, please. Thank you. Now, the next couple of slides are about information that you may well be very familiar with from your own officers, but according to our information, that Workday, the recovery in weekday workplace visits, so people returning to their workplace, has been relatively strong in Luton, and that will have a positive impact on the high streets and the retail sector in Luton, but still it's still low compared with the levels in February 2020. Moving on, please. And again, departures from London Luton Airport, which I'm sure you're familiar with, and I think you've got further information later on in your pack. But the departures were recovering reasonably well in April to July 2022, and even exceeding the February 2020 levels for the first time in April. But that appears to have stalled a bit towards the end of 2022. And so we'll need to see what happens throughout 2023. And clearly, the airport has a huge impact on the economy of Luton generally. Next slide, please. Equality and diversity is clearly absolutely critical to all of the programmes that we deliver, and we know that Luton in particular has an increasingly diverse population, as you can see from the chart here. So it's something that we are very keen to ensure is firmly embedded in all of our policies and programmes. And as I say, Judith leads on that area and will be very happy to update you on what we've been doing recently. Next slide, please. Our growth hub, so we have a team of business advisors that work directly with businesses, helping them, and particularly help them to recover after the pandemic. And we have a number of programmes and grant schemes on offer, and we have a growth hub website where businesses can find out all about those particular activities. So intensive business support, working with our universities as well. And as this slide shows, what we've achieved since April last year across the growth hub. 106 businesses receiving that intensive business support, 32 companies attending our Growth Curve masterclasses, which we operate with Cranfield University and the University of Bedfordshire, and 43 new jobs created. Next slide, please. So skills is an absolutely vital area, and we know that you are passionate about skills in Luton, and the importance of giving your young people the best opportunities to pursue a career in Luton. So we're funded partly by the Careers and Enterprise Company, and we're setting up a careers hub that will now cover the whole of the South East Midlands, following the extremely effective careers hub that Luton established as part of a national pilot initiative. So the Careers Hub is all about providing that careers advice and support for schools, enabling young people to understand what job opportunities, career opportunities are available in their area and how they can access them. So how they can gain the sorts of experience and qualifications and competencies that they need in order to access those careers. And again, this shows how good and effective the Careers Hub in Luton has been. This list of Gatsby benchmarks, which are about the quality of careers provision. So, for example, they cover areas such as experience of the workplace, engagement with employers, providing a stable careers programme. And you can see that schools and colleges in Luton are doing very well, extremely well compared with the national average on all of those benchmarks. And the one that is slightly lower, benchmark 6, is around workplace experience, which has been particularly difficult as a result of the pandemic. Moving on, please. So, well, again, I know that you've got a report about the DART, the Direct Air Rail Transit project later on in the agenda, but it was fantastic to see the King in Luton and the coverage of all the fantastic things that are going on in Luton that provoked. So Judith and I are very happy indeed to answer any questions that you have about SEMLEP.
Thank you very much, Hilary and Judith, for your comprehensive report. Are there any questions from members? Yep. And Franks, please.
Thank you very much for the presentation. I'm just interested in a bit more information about the 40% budget reduction. Is that a 40% reduction in your budget for running the organisation, staffing, etc., all the rest of it, or is it a 40% reduction in the capital fund that you invest in projects, or both?
Thank you. If I may answer the question, Chair. Yes, the LEP receives some funding from the Department of Levelling Up Housing and Communities, and that's what we call our core funding, and that's around running our organisation. We also receive some funding from the Business, Enterprise and Industrial Strategy Department, BEIS, and that supports part of the Growth Hub activity that I talked about. We have other sources of funding still at the moment from European funding in particular, European Regional Development funding and skills funding, although that will be coming to an end later this year. So the 40% reduction was an average across the contribution from DLUC and the contribution from BEIS to running our organisation. In terms of the capital funding, we no longer receive capital funding for what was our big local growth fund programme, our 265 million programme that was overseen by Judith and her team, and our Getting Building fund of 27.3 million. Nearly all of that money has been spent, and we've got some independent evaluation of how that money's been spent. But the 40% was around part of the funding for our organisation, didn't relate to our capital programme.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions? More questions? No. Yeah, Councillor Dave.
Kind of based off the back of that, you obviously got the 40% reduction in it. Are you expecting a further reduction to the running capital?
Thank you. That's a really good question, and I think we wish we knew the answer to that. We have been waiting for government to provide an indication of the funding for 23-24 for some time. I mean, as you'll all know, there were lots of sort of changes in central government throughout the course of last year, and whereas we'd expected to receive an indication of our funding in time for us to put together a delivery programme last November, we still at the moment don't know what the funding from DLUC and Bays will be for next year. We are therefore looking at a number of scenarios, one of which could be that we receive a similar amount in 23-24 as we did in 22-23, but we might receive less. I think it's probably unlikely that we will receive more. So we're starting to look at the implications of that for the structure of our organisation, relating to those three activities that we showed in our presentation.
Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Jubilee.
Thank you very much, Chair. Happy New Year, Hilary and Judith, to you both. I'm sure I can still say that. Well, firstly, thank you so much for your support that you've actually given to Luton and the incredible projects that you helped to fund. That's been greatly appreciated and received. And obviously, I'm somebody who actually does use some of your toolkits that you make available for small businesses, because I've actually found that particularly in Southwold, some of the local businesses have found those incredibly useful, especially during recovery period, which is still extremely slow going from some of those small businesses. I did also have a question. Firstly, in relation to your 40% budget reduction, does that have an impact on any commitments to funding that you've already made in any projects and so on? And second of all, with regards to the SEMLEP business survey, I mean, I appreciate it's for 2021. Was there another one that was conducted or carried out in 2022, or is there another one in the pipeline? Thank you.
Thank you very much, and Happy New Year to you too, and other committee members. On the second part of your question first, the business survey is generally conducted every 2 years. So there hasn't been another one since that one in 2021. We're hoping to be able to conduct another survey later this year, but that will depend on funding, and we'll need a decision from our board on that. But the results of the business survey, which are obviously freely available to all of our partners, we found them incredibly useful, particularly around some of the issues that businesses are facing around skills gaps, and also the one that I highlighted around planning for net zero. So some really interesting information comes out of that service. I do hope that we can carry out another one. In terms of the impact of the budget reduction, we will ensure that all of our commitments will be undertaken. So there's nothing that we will need to withdraw from in terms of a financial commitment. I mean, clearly, if we do need to restructure the organisation and sadly lose some of our team members, then that will have an impact in the longer term on our ability to work with our partners, which we're really keen to do. And Judith, in particular, with our Growth Hub manager, Vicky Klamuka, as well, has been talking to all of our local authorities about how we can help with, for example, UK shared prosperity funding, whether we can provide strategic advice, help with delivery, and there are lots of examples of the things that we can do. I don't know, Judith, if you want to sort of add anything else on that.
Yes, if I may, I'll perhaps just say two things just to develop what you were just saying, Hilary. I think firstly, just on that reassurance about existing commitments. So certainly in terms of all the capital projects, we have the funds for that. And indeed, because Luton Borough Council is our accountable body, those funds are indeed held by Luton Borough Council on our behalf. And so we have worked very carefully with colleagues from Luton to make sure those commitments can be we can continue to support those legal commitments that we've got, and really the restructuring that we're talking about is around the looking forward to the future and how we handle that. So hopefully that just provides you with some reassurance in that. And certainly, sorry, I've lost my train of thought. What was the second point that you said?
about working with partner local authorities?
Oh, yes, of course. In terms of the partner local authorities, that is a really important part of what we do. And really, I think there's two aspects to that. Well, three aspects really. There's firstly us providing the insight and information that we've got. So, for instance, the business survey, but all of the other work that the team does. So there's lots of work going on, whether it be sector specific, so that we can inform local authorities how to work with, what the key issues are in a particular sector. So that's really important. And then, so as well as building on that aspect and sharing that information, which is widely available on our website, but we can also, provide in further detail in other ways. But we're also working with local authority partners in terms of how we deliver. So, for instance, one of the key issues that you've identified in Luton through your UK Shared Prosperity Fund, and we've identified through the business survey, is this issue about businesses engaging with net zero carbon, and many of them kind of indicating that they want to do it, but they don't know how to do it. And obviously that's been flagged in your UK Shared Prosperity Fund intentions. And one of the things that we're doing, and as Hilary said, with Vicky Hamuka, who is the Growth Hub Manager, is working with your staff at Luton Borough Council to say, well, and indeed other local authorities to say, well, rather than each local authority trying to employ or contract that expertise effectively 6 times over across the SEMLEP area, and knowing that that's expensive advice, it's also advice that everybody's trying to get at the moment, so it isn't particularly readily available. So how can we work with you and with our other local authority partners to be able to deliver that for Luton residents, but in a cost-effective way? So that's the kind of thing that we're trying to do, is use the insight, use our delivery expertise to make sure that the outcomes which we want to focus on with you are truly delivered. And I think that's probably the third aspect that I just wanted to say. Obviously, I've had the pleasure during the last year of going to a number of Luton-led events around the 2040 agenda. And one of the things that we're trying to do is very much work with you on how you're delivering your agenda and how we can add value to you delivering on that agenda. And I'm sure there's more progress we can make, and hopefully we can make some of that in 2023.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Members, are you happy with the recommendations? Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. Have a good evening to both. Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you very much.
Thank you. Goodbye.
So now we are moving on to agenda item 10, Luton Dart. Yes, the members who have shown disclosed their interest already, they can leave. Yeah, thank you. Yes, please.
Thank you very much. My name is Ruud Hackett. I'm Project Director DART within Luton Rising. DART as a project is a quite complex project, as you might expect. It's not only building, constructing the DART itself with all the documentation, everything goes with it, but also managing all the interfaces, contractualize the interfaces with the airport, interface with National Rail, ticketing agreements to make sure we can sell tickets, and of course prepare the operational organization. So in itself, it's a quite complex project that needs to be done. Towards going live, therefore, there is a corporate governance process in place that reflects that. So the first step in there is entering into a countdown phase. The reason we have to go into a countdown phase is because we have to give notice to National Rail to get new fares into the systems, and we're talking about roughly 14,000 individual fares that needs to be put in, and we have to give notice to the current shuttle service. So what we do is I give a recommendation to the DART Exec Committee, who then decides whether we go or don't go into a countdown period. At the end of that countdown period, the DART Exec Committee will make a recommendation toward the Luton Rising Board to say we can actually move passengers on the Dart, and therefore we can go into soft launch. And that's a period in which the Dart runs in parallel with the current shuttle bus service. And then the CEO of Luton Rising can take the decision to actually shut off and go into full commercial services, i.e. the shuttle bus won't no longer run. So the original plan was around the 3rd of October to go to the Dart Exec Committee to take that decision to go into countdown period. A couple of weeks before that, I reviewed everything where we were and decided to tell to the Dart Exec Committee that I thought it was not appropriate to go into the meeting. In the paper, it's explained some of the concrete stuff that is in there, but essentially there were too many open items at that point to take the risk that they would be closed out at the time that you then would have to take the go live decision. Obviously, time moves on. So in the meantime, just before Christmas, I did recommend the Dart Exec Committee to go into the countdown phase, and the Dart Exec Committee has decided to go into the countdown phase. So we're in that period now, which means that we're working towards recommending the Luton Rising board to go live later on. There are no dates to report because I can't report a date that the Luton Rising board hasn't decided yet. So that is an ongoing process. There's nothing in there that was in October and is now that materially jeopardizes the project. It is a number of construction issues, elements of construction that need to be finished, documentation around construction that still needs to be delivered, and there were elements around contracts and the readiness of the organization. A number of those items are still open. The only difference between the October and December decision was that we in December believed that we should be able to close out those issues before we go to the board to recommend to a go live position. And I think that is the simple description of the paper, and happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much for your report. Are there any questions? Yeah, Councillor Hussain first.
Can I ask you, there are a number of issues, and I think you've been appointed recently or some time ago as a program director, and these issues are the one that really should have been highlighted at a very early stage. And we're 2 years down the line. Are we likely to, when do we see that when the Dart will be fully operational and running? And I've got a number of other questions to ask you.
Thanks for that. As I said, I can't give a date when we are going live because it's not in my remit to actually determine the date that goes live. I will have to go to the board with a recommendation at a point in time. And we are optimistic that we're not for nothing in the countdown period. So we are closing out the last issues that are there. But until we're in a situation where I can go to the board and says everything is closed out, I'm not in a position to give a date on when we open exactly. But we're certainly in the last bits of the process to close out. Where I do agree is, and that is always with this kind of project, compare it with the Elizabeth line, if the last one that you could compare, that last minute surprises can come out of the woodwork. Yeah, but Elizabeth line, there was last minute commissioning issues of the signaling that was an issue. So I can never exclude any completely that are there, but where we are today is that we believe we're in control and we're working towards go live.
Yeah. I'm not asking, date in sometime in April or whatever. What I'm talking about is sometime this year. Are we seeing operationally it will be coming into service?
So it says we're in the countdown phase. Yes, it's not towards the end of next year. We are in the last bits.
Yeah. In terms of these, the Virgin and BT line, phone lines, and all these. And then is it likely to be what is now budgeted, or is it going to go over the budget?
Sorry, say it again. Was the budget?
Is it likely to be on the budget, which is budgeted now, or are we expecting a more extra?
So I've reported a forecast for completion towards the Dart Exec Committee and therefore towards the Luton Rising Board. And we expect to stay within that last forecast that we submitted. And looking at Mark now for a minute, I think in November, the last one.
Chair, if I may, I don't think we should stray into commercially confidential matters into a public
Okay,
in a public
I
meeting.
accept that.
If Councillor Hussain requires an answer to that question, we are happy to give it in private or in writing.
Yeah. No, I'm just asking, is it on budget? That's basically was the question. Not in terms of.
So we're in what I have reported forecasted last to the Dart Exec Committee.
I don't want you to go into too much into the confidential and the commercial part of it. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Franks?
I frankly can't see the point at all in asking questions on this topic, because we've been given so much information in the past that hardly any of it has actually materialised into reality. So, and even now, we're not being offered a date when it's going to be commercially operating. It's best part of 2 years over date. It started off at 225 million pound project, and it is currently not terribly far away from 300 million. I just think, I mean, and all you ever get is a load of stuff about project milestones that don't appear to have been identified when the project started. For goodness sake, they're talking about the ticketing system. Surely you knew at day one that there was going to be a need for a ticketing system. Why on earth can you now tell us 2 years after it should have gone live that you still haven't sorted it out? I think the whole thing is a whole series of disasters. I mean, yes, of course, it will be a major asset to the airport if it ever happens, but I don't know that we can have confidence that it ever will. All we've ever had at every time it's come up has been a whole list of new problems that somebody obviously didn't realise were going to need to be solved. I can't even bother to say anymore.
That comment?
I didn't see a question in that, so it's a bit difficult to answer. I'm here since December 2021. I have a view on what happened since then. What happened before, I don't really have an opinion on.
Councillor Wynne?
Yes. Notwithstanding what's been said so far, just a straightforward question, please. In my papers, at least, it's on page 127, and it's item 14. It is talking about the additional work identified within the Dart Public Realm project. I didn't know that there was a public realm project rather than just the Dart project, but there we go. And it's talking there about the design work not being finished. And yet in item 15, it says the project is currently forecast to complete at the end of January. I can't tie those two together.
So at the time of writing the paper, because the project of course is moving forward, let's go back first. So the Dart Public Realm is the Bartlett Square area that is before the building, between Kimpton Road and the building. So that's the area we're talking about, which has to have a taxi rank, has a replacement bus route on there, obviously has a walkway towards the station, and has an escape route and an entrance route to the Dart building.
Yeah, can I just say that yes, I understand that's what it is. It was just that it was only when I saw this report that there was any mention of a separate project. to me, if there was a project, we should have seen project reports about that project before and not suddenly discover that there is another project. I just assumed that all the Bartlett Square thing was all part of one total project for the Dart. That was why I was surprised.
So the clarity I can give on that is that it was a separate project managed separately until March or April of last year when I was asked to take over that project. So that is why it's included from April last year into the DART reporting, and it is treated as an integral part of the DART project. Before that, because it's a separate development of that whole area, it's a first phase of the planning permission of that whole area, it was managed as a first phase of that project. You're absolutely right to say we didn't have the complete design at that point and still have a forecast in the time. That was with the knowledge and the limited knowledge, we made it a forecast of what we could expect. In the meantime, the design has been finalized and the end date is indeed a bit later as the end of January date in here and would be March.
You're saying that will be March. You're saying March now. It doesn't look much like March when you drive down the road past it.
And to get out of the ground for that kind of project is the big issue. So once you have done all the digging and removed, for instance, the Vauxhall concrete floor that was there, once you've done that, that is the majority of work done. Still a lot of work to be done, but the latest forecast is to end in March.
Thank you, Chair. I'll let that one go there. It doesn't seem very likely just as a casual observer driving down the road when I go that way, which I do often. It doesn't much look like it.
I'm slightly confused by several several bits in this report, therefore, based on what we've discussed since we started taking questions on it. First, obviously, it's written here, we've already said that project is currently forecasted to complete the end of January. That's now wrong. You told us an updated time on that. You told us we're in a countdown phase. Now, the document I have in front of me says the countdown phase is 10 weeks. Therefore, if the countdown phase is 10 weeks, surely the prospective go-live date would be 10 weeks from the start of the countdown phase. And you're telling us that you're not at liberty to give us a go-live date. So therefore, again, what is in the document I've got in front of me is wrong, because either it's 10 weeks or if it's 10 weeks exactly, then you would have a date.
So it's the countdown phase towards the decision of the board to be made when you go live. Now that is meant to be a very short notice, as you have seen in Elizabeth Line, for instance, where the announcement between public announcement to go live and actually go live was days. So we try to make the decision of the Luton Rising Board as late as possible or as short as possible before actually going live in there, because then we have the latest information available and the highest certainty that you actually go live at that time. Obviously, internal in the project, we have target dates, as you would expect in a project, but that is not a publicly announceable date yet, because I can only give a date the moment the Luton Rising Board actually decides on the date to go open.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone. Members, are you happy with the report? Yeah, it's been noted. Thank you. Now we are moving on to agenda item 12, authorization for consultation on the Luton Town Centre Design Guide, supplementary planning document. Agenda item 12.
Thank you, Chair. This report is brought to Overview and Scrutiny Board today before it is considered by the Executive on the 30th of January 2023. The Luton Local Plan is the current statutory development plan for the borough and sets a vision and approach for sustainable growth in Luton. Policy LLP3 in the local plan commits the council to updating the Luton Town Centre Development Framework. In accordance with this, a new town centre master plan was approved in 2021 and was subject to extensive consultation. Through that consultation, stakeholders consistently emphasised the need to raise the bar for development in the town centre. Given these comments, a strong national drive to improve design quality across the country, and given the need to consider carbon impacts, consultants Eliza Morrisons were asked to produce a Luton Town Centre design guide as a supplementary planning document. The SPD, the supplementary planning document, adds additional detailed policies in the Luton local plan in relation to design. It focuses on 4 key areas: sustainability, block guidelines, building guidelines, and amenities. All of these contribute to improving Luton's built environment. Once adopted, the SPD will be a material consideration in the decision-making process for planning applications in the town centre and surrounding area. So far, the SPD has been to 2 separate workshops, one with members of the Local Plan Working Party and one with stakeholders. It's also been subject to internal consultation with relevant officers within the council. The next step in the process is formal public consultation on the SPD, subject to authorisation from Executive on the 30th of January. It's proposed that consultation take place for a period of 6 weeks, as outlined in the Council's Statement of Community Involvement. Consultation will include notifying all consultees on the Planning Policy Team's consultation database, promoting the consultation online, in the local newspapers, via the Social Justice Units Network and Community Newsletter, and making physical copies of the document available for the public to view in libraries and in the Town Hall. Following the closure of the consultation, any representations received will be considered, the SPD will be amended and will be brought again to OSB and Executive for formal adoption. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions on this report? Councillor Franks first.
A comment, thank you, Chair, not a question. I welcome this document. Been waiting for it for a long time, and I know a huge amount of work has gone into the preparation of it. I hope with all my heart that the Development Management Committee has the guts to stand up for it and defend it in the same way that I'm reasonably confident that the planning officers will. I had a conversation with a planning officer a while ago when he was telling me a prospective developer was in consultation with the department over a proposal he was preparing and was going to put forward, and he was told that it was most unlikely that it would gain planning consent. And he said, well, I don't understand why that is, because there are loads of developments like this all over the town. And he was told, yes, there are, but we've changed our view of things these days. We're looking for higher quality. Now, that's the kind of approach that the planning officers are taking. It's to be welcomed. I hope the same relates down to the Development Management Committee, and I hope that when it comes to the crunch, they've got the guts to stand up and defend this this design guide. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Franks. Councillor Wynne?
Yes, I just want to say that, like Councillor Franks, I'm very pleased to see this. Members of this committee will know I'm a big fan of the Town Centre Master Plan, and I'm very happy with the way it's going. I am a little bit doubtful about wasting all the time and money on the consultations, because certainly in my ward, Luton consultations are not well received. But I think it's a good document, and I'm very pleased to see it.
Thank you, Councillor Wynne. Councillor Hussain?
I think I welcome the document, and I'm sure the member of the Development Management Committee will and be enthusiastic, because everybody wants to see the quality improved in the town centre. Nobody supports that, and I myself and my colleagues have never ever supported anything less. And any improvement would be, a great in the longer term, because any of the buildings or any developments in the centre will be there for years to come, and we do want a good quality development in the town centre.
Yeah, thank you, members. Any comments from reporting officers? No. Okay, thank you, members. Are you happy with the?
Yeah, I just think it might be worth actually recording our thanks to the officers who put a huge amount of work into developing this, because it is very much appreciated.
Absolutely. Okay, thank you, Angela. Are you happy with that? So with this recommendation, it's been noted, your report. Thank you. Have a good evening. So now we are moving on to agenda item 8, LPC corporate performance.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, councillors. We're here to present the corporate performance report. But first of all, I'd like to introduce my colleague Zanoon, who's a new manager in business intelligence. Zanoon started as an apprentice with Luton and has been with us since he was 18, which was about 2 months ago, as you can see. So I just thought I'd introduce him because he's very much a success story. Aurora, would you like to go?
So I'd like to welcome you all.
So performance in Q2 has been largely positive, with 24 KPIs operating above or within target levels. Many services which were heavily impacted by COVID-19 have recovered, and measures are being put in place to improve performance in the red and amber areas. So beginning with the reds, the number of homelessness open cases in Q2 stands at 640, which exceeds the England average of 450. Remaining below the England average indicates positive performance, as it means that fewer people are being registered as homeless. The team are still receiving a high number of approaches each month. The team are working to reduce older cases over 56 days in relief in a bid to reduce these to an average of 35 each. They are currently 59 each. The percentage of children attending good and outstanding secondary schools are 75.9%, which is below the target of 83%. Town centre footfall in Q2 stands at 1.73 million, leading to a year-to-date figure of 3.76 million. These figures are below target. Footfall in Luton has been falling since 2016. The number of affordable new homes completed Q2 figure of 1 has fallen short of the quarterly target of 25. The current year-to-date figure is 13. Following extended delays, the service are now preparing for the handover of 6 new rented council houses in late 2022, early 2023. 5% of education, health and care plans were issued within 20 weeks, excluding exceptions. This is lower than the target of 90%. Luton's Q1 and 2 performance has declined for a number of reasons, which include significant increase in demand and reduced organisation capacity. Additional resources have been made available and backlogs are clearing. It's expected that this will be evidenced in the next reporting period. The service will be working towards compliance of 90% for all new requests, although on a national level, compliance is around 59.9%. Percentage of influenceable council spend through procurement with local suppliers Q2 figure is 40.3%, which is short of the quarterly target of 60%. A number of actions are being taken to address this, including the recent acquirement of data from a local supplier, which allows the service to compare the list of their suppliers outside of the 20-mile radius and inform the service if there are any other suppliers locally that the service can engage and invite to the next tender exercise. Moving on to the positive performance, airport passenger numbers for Q2 have exceeded the expectations set out in the airport business plan by 8%. The Q2 figure is 4.25 million. However, September saw a slight reduction in the rate of recovery compared to 2019 from 80% to 78%, which could be an early indication of the impact of the cost of living crisis. The recovery of passenger numbers post-COVID-19 is forecast to reach pre-pandemic levels by around 2024. The number of cases prevented from becoming homeless Q2 figure is 102, with a year-to-date figure of 240, which is on target. The service expects performance to dip slightly for Q3, but then increase again in Q4. Work has been undertaken to check all preventions and ensure that they are closed properly on the homeless management system, as well as additional training and reminders of preventions. The expectation is to meet the end-of-year target. The rate of homelessness applications to acceptances is 16%, which is below the England average of 20% of total decisions. Remaining below the England average indicates positive performance, as it means that fewer people are being registered as homeless. The number of homeless households allocated a permanent offer through the housing register for the second quarter is 48, creating a year-to-date total of 94. The percentage of ASCOF adults in contact with secondary mental health services who are in employment is above target, with 12.7%. However, it should be noted that this is a provisional figure and is as at August 2022. The final figure is due early 2023. The proportion of registered care services rated good or outstanding Q2 figure is 76%. The timeliness of benefits changes for the second quarter, 8.50, is on target, which is 12. The number of newly approved foster carers Q2 figure is 8, leading to a year-to-date figure of 12, which is on track to meet the annual target of 25. The percentage of attendance in state-funded primary schools Q2 figure is 93.7%, which is on target of 93.8%. The percentage of attendance in state-funded secondary schools Q2 figure is 91.9%, which is on target of 91.4%. The percentage of children attending good and outstanding primary schools Q2 figure is 91.8%, which is above the target of 90.5%. And the percentage of children attending good and outstanding special schools is 100%. Attainment Key Stage 2 reading, writing and maths current figure is 61.4% and is above the target, which is 58.3%. The amount of council tax collected Q2 figure is 55.4%, which is on track to meet the annual target of 96.5%. Statutory compliance with both housing and corporate have either maintained or improved. Unemployment in Luton has been severely impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic, with both the labour force survey rate and the claimant count measure well above the national figure. The unemployment rate Q2 figure is 5.6%, and the unemployment claimant count figure is 5.8%. Both of these are in line with the quarterly target. Thank you. Are there any questions?
Thank you very much for your comprehensive report. Are there any questions, Councillor Frank?
Yeah, thanks very much. I'm just a bit confused over in my document, it's page 76. I expect you've probably got different page numbers, which doesn't help, but it's looking at the number of pupils permanently excluded, and it says in brackets academic year to date. Well, it says that in Q1 there were 23, in Q2 there was 1, and the year to date is 1. I would have thought the year to date was more likely to be 24, actually, unless I've got. The other thing is, am I to understand that you really are working on the academic year and not the council's financial year? Because there are obviously different dates, so that would confuse me even more.
Most measures relating to education work on academic years. I can go back to the service and talk about reviewing the year-to-date figure, if change it to cumulative if you feel that would be more accurate.
Thank you. Councillor Wynne?
Yes, maybe it's just me, but I thought that the report this time was better than any report I'd seen before. And I just wanted to say that up front. The three areas that concern me, at least, from going through the report, and they're the ones that I've just highlighted for myself, are we seem to have an ongoing issue that's maybe getting worse about childhood obesity in the town. I was appalled to see we'd only just got one affordable house in the figures, absolutely atrocious. And I was pleased to see we'd got better on agency workers. Perhaps you could comment whether or not we're going to continue that improvement, because I know it's a very, very difficult area, particularly with social work and so on. So those are my three areas. I'd appreciate comments on those three, please.
Thank you, Councillor. I think on agency workers, there's been a real push to move people into contracts, get jobs out. There's been a real emphasis from HR on getting jobs filled. I think we can't know what's going to happen in the future. We're in a bit of an uncertain time, but I think that the evidence today is that we are likely to reduce agency numbers as we go forward, particularly children's, adults. Those are the areas where we've had the particular focus on trying to get permanent or at least fixed term staff. So I am expecting that to continue, to continue well, but with the caveat that we just don't know what's going to happen, do we? We are in such an uncertain time. But I think the improvement has been as a result of officer action, that they've actually been working really hard to reduce agency numbers. And obviously it's a challenge to our budget, so that's a very positive thing. And I know finance have been very keen to see that improvement. I'm going to ask Colin to come in on the social housing issue, because I think that's probably the best thing. I'll hand over to you, Colin.
Can I just come back to you on that? Yes, I do appreciate the amount of effort that's had to go in on that, and particularly social care, childcare, and so on. The only reason for me raising it was that I don't want any focus to be taken away from doing that going forward, because it's better for the children and better for our budget.
It's been certainly my experience that children's particularly have very much got into a rhythm of how to deal with agency, how to try to get people on the books, and that's been very, very successful. I definitely hear what you're saying. I will pass it on to children's, but I think that they have got much better at managing this. They've had an actual action plan and they've implemented it. So again, we don't know what's going to happen, but I do think that there's been a lot of change behaviour in children's, and so I am hopeful that that will continue.
Councillor Wynne, any other questions? Are you hearing us, Tim?
Hi, Chair. It's Damien Alcock. I'm the Service Director for Operational Social Work. I just wanted to add a bit about the agency issue, if that's okay, just to explain a little bit further about the efforts that we're taking. Sorry, can you hear me, Chair?
Yeah. Any more questions, comments?
Aren't you going to allow him to explain, Chair?
Yeah, you can carry on, yeah.
Thank you, Chair. So just to reassure councillors and other members of the Scrutiny Board, we're undertaking regular monthly reviews of every single team in the service through our Star Chamber process, where we explore all the agency staff we currently have, the efforts that we've made to convince them to join us on a permanent basis. We regularly review our permanent recruitment campaign to make sure that we're reviewing and refreshing it to make sure that we are making sure we get the best competitive advantage. But one of the challenges we have is that it's a supply and demand issue. That there are since the pandemic, 30,000 social workers have left the profession nationally. So it's a reduced number of social workers that lots of local authorities are searching for. Also, we are starting to see the impact of the cost of living crisis in terms of whether people are prepared to take on a permanent contract because they know that their capacity to earn is greater if they're an agency worker. But that is something that we are trying to counter. But as my colleague Zoe said, it is a challenging environment, and we have been relatively successful so far.
Anything more, members? Yeah, Juvelia Hussain.
Thank you very much, officers, as ever, first for the report and for all your hard work, particularly in such challenging times. Just a point of clarification. On page 100, it's in my pack, there is a figure here of, well, I should say the percentage of ASCOF adults in contact with secondary mental health service, etc. There is a percentage of 12.7% as at August 2022. And then obviously there's a short sentence on the end saying that the final figure is due late 2022. Do we have a final figure, or is that still not yet determined?
That figure we don't have yet, but I'll go back to officers and get that figure to you shortly.
If you can, that'd be great. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Yep.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor, for that question. Just to, I want to bring you up to date to December. I mean, as you know, affordable housing is developed through new development, through private developers, housing associations who usually buy the Section 106, or council through housing revenue account, or even Foxhall Homes. To the end of December, I don't want to talk about the Q2 because I'm into Q3. End of December, we brought forward 36 new affordable housing units. Actually 12 in December. The council, through the housing revenue account, went out and bought nine units off of a developer, including 4 4-bedrooms. So at the end of December, we have got 36 new developments where most people have moved into. This year, up to the end of December, we've actually started 65 new affordable housing units. We're waiting for about 52 affordable housing units, which should have come in at the beginning of this financial year, but may slip into the next financial year. That's 52. That's lots we've been looking at, and we haven't delivered. So whilst in Q2, it was a bit dismal. And if you look at last year, we only received 3% of affordable housing units through the planning system, which is just awful, as we all know. But we are up in our game, and we went to executive not that long ago to increase our the amount of money we're going to plough into the affordable housing development from the council's point of view. We've got to get private developers to up their game, however, and we're looking to do that.
Any questions to officers? No.
The 36 that came on board, where were the 36? Where were they? Which ones were they?
Oh, wow. Do you want me to take out my spreadsheet and tell you where they were?
Oh, so it wasn't, I mean, I presume it's those 52 you're talking about, the ones in Hightown.
The 52 are the, not the Hightown one. Yeah, they're the Red Row units. They're Hightown.
Yeah, the ones in Brunswick Street,
Yeah.
that one.
Yeah.
They're the ones to your next one, but you don't know where the previous 36 were.
No, the 36 are a combination. 9 were down at Wordsworth Road. There are a number of Foxhall Homes units, and also another number that we bought.
So Limbury Mead, was that Limbury Mead, the Foxhall Home?
Yeah, that's what. No, did you say
Limbury Mead, the old Limbury Community Centre site?
Brangham, yeah. Included in that.
Right. Okay.
Any more questions? Thank you very much.
Chair, I think there was a third point to come back on the council raised, which was about childhood obesity. We don't have any additional commentary or on top of what's in the report, but what I will do is ask the Director of Public Health to add something to the next report, to add some commentary about it, so that you can get a bit more expert information about that one. Is that okay?
That's fine. Unless I've misinterpreted the graphs, it looks as if we have an issue with childhood obesity entering school, and that it gets worse as they get older. Unless I've misinterpreted the graph.
No, I think you're understanding the graphs correctly. And I'll ask the Director of Public Health to comment on that. We'll get that in for the next quarter's report. Okay.
Thank you very much, everyone. Members, you're happy with the report? Okay, thanks a lot. Been reported. Thank you. Noted, sorry. Report has been noted. So now we are moving on to agenda item 9, civic agreement.
Good evening, councillors. I think everyone knows me, but just in case, I'm Sinead McNamara. I'm the Interim Service Director for Inclusive Growth. I'm going to quickly take you through the report. So I'm consulting with Overview and Scrutiny Board on a new civic agreement between the University of Bedfordshire and Luton Council. Work began with the university in spring 2022, and it's been supported by the Institute for Community Studies. They have extensive experience and have shaped many of these agreements over the last 3 years with other universities and councils across the UK. The University of Bedfordshire and Luton Council are committed to working together to support the future of our town. This civic agreement is a binding document that will strategically direct our collaboration, focusing on key priorities and special projects centred on place, public and partnerships. The civic agreement is important for the university and the council. It is an opportunity for two institutions central to the future prosperity of Luton to work together for the benefit of the town's people, businesses, partner organisations and the environment. The civic agreement is designed to deliver the Luton 2040 vision, a place to thrive, a shared town-wide vision that all key anchor institutes, including the university and council, have worked together to produce and are committed to achieving. All of the priorities are also aligned to the 2040 priorities. A governance model has been proposed, which includes the formation of a knowledge and innovation hub and a programme board. Representatives from across the university and the council will sit on these groups, and an annual progress report will be produced and brought back to members. It is proposed, if signed off, to formally launch the civic agreement on Tuesday, the 7th of March 2023. Any questions?
Thank you very much for your report, Sinead. Any questions on this report? Councillor Wayne?
Yes, just one, at least as far as I'm concerned, on page 112. Just an explanation, please. I thought I'd understood until I got to this page, and then it introduced and the role of the airport. What's the context of and the role of the airport in this report?
Are you referring to the bit where it says key local initiatives such as Luton Rising?
It's on the page which starts off with a header, appendix to item 9, and it says a civic agreement for Luton, University of Bedfordshire and Luton Borough Council. And then the first paragraph says fund and the role of the airport. And I wondered what the airport was in the context of this paper.
So in terms of, it's around the work that we're doing around growing the airport in terms of the wider piece through Luton Rising and the airport. So it's not specific in terms of, there's nothing specific in the agreement. It's kind of the reference to inward investment and growth of the airport.
Can I help?
I'm not sure I understand your response.
Yeah, I think in order to understand what this is saying, the word fund at the top of page 112 is not the first word of the sentence. The sentence starts on the previous page. I think if you read it in that context, it does make a lot more sense.
Yeah, sorry, yeah. Councillor Franks is right. It's so if you turn to the previous page, it's the UK Shared Prosperity Fund, and then it's the role of the airport in creating a prosperous and inclusive town. So I think it's just where it's gone over the print. Sorry, I think I made it more confusing by misunderstanding the query. Sorry, so thank you for clarifying.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Catherine. Any more questions? Councillor Julia Hussain?
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you for the report, Sinead. And I personally think that this is something that is great for our town, especially a young town that has a large proportion of young people. And I think, two important institutions working together, especially the University of Bedfordshire, is going to be, will bring great dividend, and looking forward to the opportunities that this, formalised partnership will present, and any funding opportunities that will also evolve through it, and that we'll be able to apply for. Oh gosh, that's a bit too loud there. But anyway, this is a great piece of work. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone. I personally think it's a great initiative, and also it's going to bring more opportunities for people of Luton in the future. And we should look for more opportunities like this in future. So thank you very much. Report has been noted. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Now we are moving on to agenda item 11, draft Luton Net Zero Roadmap.
Hello, good evening. I'm Kat Wysocka, the Head of Climate Change for the Council. It's just a very quick update tonight on the draft Net Zero Roadmap. So we have come to this board in August with two previous documents. There's a one-page roadmap and set of objectives, and the report. So the board had received that favourably and asked for more details on the emerging action plan. So this is the action plan, and the draft policy are in Appendix 3 of the documents. Quickly on that, the council is committing to looking at borough-wide emission, but also in this policy committing to looking at council emissions that stem from council-owned operations, and then increasing resilience. And what also has been suggested by this board to committing some resource to more measuring and monitoring of the carbon emissions, so we can give you a fuller and better picture. The actions in the action plans, there's over 100 lines, so we wanted to give this board some exposure of these lines. When we were collating this action plan, we started about this time last year. So the context with the cost of living crisis to the conflict in Ukraine is a bit different now. So we are going back to the officers and reviewing the actions and disaggregating some of them because they feel a bit clunky, a bit bulky, and we're asking colleagues to be more specific about what they're planning within the next 2 years, and then also how we're going to measure success and how we're going to monitor how quickly we're progressing. we also sent the roadmap, the whole suite of document is out for public consultation at the moment. It's on our consultation portal, and the consultation will be open until the 27th of January. And so we also wanted to take this opportunity, as we were sort of at the midpoint of the consultation, to give the board a very quick snapshot of the responses that we were receiving. So we had about 300 of responses, 280 to specific consultation with young people. That has been requested by the Climate Change Advisory Board, and 20 at that point, which was the 4th of January, we only had 20 responses through our consultation portal. So since we have increased the efforts to advertise through paid social media, and I think there'll be also correspondence going to all members to increase the numbers of responses on the portal. We also attended over a dozen face-to-face events throughout town, and we approached more than 100 people. And so just headline messages from some of the meetings and the consultation is that the area, out of the 6 areas that we have listed within our documents, so homes, buildings, transport, waste and consumer choices, airport and biodiversity and resilience of green areas, the area that people felt needed most urgent attention was the homes and energy efficiency, and this is quite understandable in the background of the cost of living crisis. So we're definitely feeling that people are more aware, more receptive sometimes to listening and to considering changes in their energy behaviours in the homes, which is a significant source of carbon emissions in Luton. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I've got a question in terms of net zero Luton. It's a central part of our 2040 vision as well. We all know that. But in terms of grant funding, we are looking for the external resources or whatever. So what is that supposed to mean? The funding, where are we going to get the funding from to do this?
So yes, we have indicated in the documents that we don't have the funding case completed at the moment to be able to fund all of these actions. So in the past, and the council had been very successful in obtaining external funding, whether that was through sort of European Union funds and also through our sort of national funding sources at national level. At this particular point in time, we're looking at every sort of opportunities that is opening. We're working with BEIS, with SEMLEP, and trying to streamline our efforts. Because the council only has 2 officers that dedicated to this agenda. So we're working with colleagues in other departments and partners to look at as many funding opportunities as we possibly can. We're approaching Luton Rising and the funders to fund pilot projects.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? Councillor Wynne?
Yes, just one. I think this whole report has moved on leaps and bounds compared with where we were, and great to see that. The thing that came out to me from looking through the report was the huge amount of resource that was required by the council. If you look through even the council-led action items and the number of officers that are going to be required to actually make this happen, going across to Rob, perhaps, have we properly taken this into account in the finance planning, Rob?
We are taking it into account, yes. It's under consideration at the moment, yes.
If I may just add to that response, we're not necessarily meaning new officers that we would need to recruit and train. this quite often is about, because the sort of reduction of carbon emissions is about officers adjusting what they're doing at the moment and taking that into account. So it's more like Dylan and myself acting as a hub and reaching out to others and training them up, and this was just to also signal that it's a cross-departmental, cross-team issue. So we're trying to get everyone on board with raising awareness and training and increasing capacity.
I understand what you said, Kat, and I agree with you. But it just feels to me, from looking through the report, which I thought gave a very good idea of where we'd got to, it just seemed to me that it was going to be a lot more work for officers and not just a matter of adjustment.
I agree. It's adjustment plus new work. Yes, I agree.
Yeah, Councillor, happy with that? Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you very much, Officer, for your report, Chair. You're absolutely right. It's an important aspect of Luton's 2040 vision, as was obviously the previous report with regards to the civic agreement. That was the word I was looking for. That was also an important aspect. And obviously, this is all investing in our young people. And on the point of young people, on page 186, Officer, the final paragraph 7 talks about focus groups with young people planned for the second half of January, and secondary schools have also requested school visits in January. Is that, gosh, that's a bit too loud. Is that taking place, finalised? Will we receive, I don't know, an update in relation to which schools will be visited, who's requested, what the outcomes are? Because that'd be great to know.
Yes, so the plan is to come back to this board at the end of February with a full report on all the consultation that's taken place and more detailed analysis of the results and how we'll be including the comments in the action plan going forward.
Okay, great. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Officer.
Thank you. Members, are you happy with that report? Okay, thank you very much. Been noted. Have a good evening. Thank you. And I would like to welcome Councillor Robert Roche in our meeting as well. Thanks for coming, Rob. Now we are moving on to agenda item 13. What I told you in the beginning, that as part of our chair's advice, we are not going to discuss this here, but we can take suggestions from the members. If you have got any suggestions for work program for future, you can just say it. Any suggestion for the future program? Okay, thank you very much, everyone. That concludes the meeting for tonight.